Well, hello everybody, welcome to Contemporary World Issues, and you can see that we're moving into the Politics and the World unit. And as I've been doing, I will have a separate recording for Section A, Section B, Section C, Section D. This happens to be the recording for Section A. But what I first want to do is go to the announcements, and we'll look at Week 5. So you can see that Week 5, we have Section A, be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then Section B could be Thursday, Friday. So however you want to break that down, I just do it this way to make it a little bit easier for you to organize your work. So we're going to look, this recording will cover all of Section A and go all the way through the World Government Quiz. You can see that you have a semester project that you'll start, and you have a web quest that you'll do in addition to the quiz for this week. So let's go ahead and jump right into Week 5, Politics and the World. Now the first thing I want to show you before we jump into the work, there's something called My Finishing Plan, which is a required assignment, and I'll need to put that in the weekly announcement. But the finishing plan is worth 50 points, and you remember that previously you had a learning plan at the beginning. Now you have a finishing plan. So check this out, answer all of these questions completely, please. I want to know I want to make sure you know where you stand right now and where you want to go in the class grade-wise. So all of these questions will answer that for me, and you can you just post this in the Dropbox as text, making sure you include the questions as always. And I'm sure you know how to do all that stuff by now. So make sure you do. That's the My Finishing Plan as part of this unit. Okay, Politics and the World. So when we get to Politics and the World, we're going to start talking about how countries organize themselves and how their leaders organize them. So first we need to look at the Class Connect write-up, and of course it says what will this unit cover. So that's going to be on the introduction on page 1. So here we are in the introduction, and as you look at this, this talks about how governments try to work within their borders to help their people, help control their people, help make their people's lives better, and things like that. So in this unit, we're going to look at all types of governments, but really we're going to explore the economic and political systems that exist, trace their development, and determine how they interact with the global community as well as the United States. So this is really what this unit is about. How different political systems and economic systems affect their people. So that's the answer to that Class Connect write-up question is right there. But we're going to look at political, economic, and cultural global alliances and a number of things in this unit. So moving on to, oh gosh, I hate when that happens. I'm able to connect to the course. Let's see if I can get back to the course. Hold on here. Okay, so here we are, back on the course, Politics and the World. Okay, we're back in the unit. The objectives, you can read through all of these, analyze the structure and form of different types of government, common governments in regions across the world, the various governments and their development, etc. The European Union, we'll learn about that. We'll learn a little bit about socialism and communism, and some issues in the Middle East, Africa, and that's going to be next week. But this recording is really for A, is just going to cover some of this, and then I think part B goes down to there. Don't worry about this because some of the stuff I've taken out, like you don't have homework quizzes, you don't have discussions, but you will have this semester project and the government quiz. A little warm-up. So you can go do, if you want to download Google Earth, and go look at different locations, different longitude and latitude coordinates of where different places are located. Just kind of a warm up to get you, examining the world a little bit, examining the globe. Okay, Section A. Let's go to the Class Connect write-up. And the first question, what is anarchy? And then list 7 types of governments in the world today. So as we look at this, we start talking about different types of government. And governments really started over 7,000 years ago. And there have been hundreds and hundreds, or thousands of governments since then, obviously, and lots of different types of governments. We can see that the main thing governments do is they are based on the principle of cooperation, protection, and the desire to avoid chaos in a society. If we look at anarchy, let's see what this is. Anarchy is the absence of government. So anarchy is the absence of any government. And you'll see that as we talk about governments, you'll see archy at the end, like democracy, monarchy, things like that. That has to deal with government. And then AN, that's the absence of something. But governments, they're a mix of the social, economic, cultural ideology of the people. What do the people believe in? And the government hopefully tries to reflect that. So in this section, in section A, the structures of different forms of government, common governmental regions, cultural factors about political situations and structures, and international agreements. We'll look at those a little bit to see how governments cooperate. This talks about a speech that President Reagan gave in 1987. At that time, there were two Germanys, East and West. East was communist, West was essentially democracy. The communist Germany was led almost by the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a communist government at that time, and it essentially told East Germany what to do. So here's President Reagan's famous speech talking about the Soviet Union, and finally, you've probably heard him say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, meaning, hey, get rid of the wall that separates East and West Germany. And East-West Germany was separated after World War II. When Germany fell, then the United States and other countries went in and set up West Germany as a democracy, then East Germany remained communist. But anyway, Reagan encouraged him to tear that down, and ultimately that's what happened. The Berlin Wall went down and Germany became one country again. And also it ended up being the demise or the breakup of the Soviet Union today. So you can read here about the country of Russia now. Okay, governments in the world. Lots of different governments. You can read through this, find out about what governments do, but there are we talk about governments as political organizations for communities or regions and things like that, but also they're governmental units for organizations and schools and all types of things. But really, the governments we talk about are the ones that rule the people in a certain region. So you can see that Rome had republics and governments early on. Then there are monarchies, empires, theocracies. So they're all different names for different types of government. But ultimately, each government obtains their rule and maintains their power in certain ways. And that power is essentially given to them by the people, although some governments do steal the power. But essentially it's given to them by the people. I'm trying to find the answer to that question. Of the 7 governments we have in the world today, you can see there are monarchies. It's like one ruler. Theocracy, which is a religious ruler. Military autocrats, meaning the military leaders run it. Communist states, and you learn about that a little bit. Dictators, which is like one person ruling the country, essentially. Then democracies like the United States. Then commonwealths, like the British Commonwealth, where it has lots of countries under one umbrella. So those are the 7 governments we see around the world today. 7 major governments. Okay, now we're going to talk about communism. Let's go back to the Class Connect write-up. So we talked about the 7 types of governments. 3 ways that communism is different from democracy. So now we're talking about communism. In communism, well, first of all, democracy is the most recognizable form of government, one of the most recognizable. But there are many other ones. And communism is essentially the opposite of democracy. That's what this means. Contradictory means contradicts or goes opposite of. So here's a chart about communism. So you can see that in communist countries, the state controls the land and all the natural resources. In the state, that means the government. The state determines the jobs and businesses there are. The state is involved in every aspect of business and education, etc. Limited civil rights and freedoms. But in democracy, look at these things. Individuals, right? We control land and resources in general. Individuals can start their own businesses, have their own careers, choose what they want to go into. There's limited government. So you can see, and then all kinds of civil rights and freedoms. So you can see how communist is different from democracy. So that one class connector item question wants you to come up with 3 things that show the difference. So communism emerged in the early 1900s as common laborers were at the whim of monarchies, meaning common laborers, meaning people that worked in factories in the fields and things. They were being controlled by the government way too much. So they decided to unite, to commute, to gather together. And Karl Marx, kind of was the father of communism, and how the people need to be helped by their government, essentially. And what he wanted to do was all the working men of countries unite. So that's how communism started. So it's way back when. But there's Soviet communism, like in Soviet Russia, back when. There's Chinese communists. There's North Korea and Cuba. Those are communists. So really we have China, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, Laos. They're still communists, but really the only one that are really strict communist countries are Cuba and North Korea. All these other communist countries have a blend of some democracy to them. Go back to the class connect right up. Let's see. So we answered the communism. 2 ideas do socialists and communism share regarding beliefs of capitalism. Vladimir Lenin, he was the leader of a revolution in Russia, and that helped overcome the Tsar. So they had a single emperor, the Tsar of Russia. And then Lenin led that overthrow, and then ultimately communism came in. So you can see that when Lenin came in, everybody got 2 ounces of bread per day. There was no fuel in the factories because of the way the Tsar was running things. So Lenin came in and started to take control. And also a man named Leon Trotsky came in. He built up the army. And this is all after World War I. World War I, when Russia was devastated. So these people came in and they decided, hey, we need a new type of government to help our country. Don't worry about the homework quiz. We're not doing those. So that's a little bit about communism. And so communism, the government controls everything, essentially. Now you have something called socialism. And socialism is where the government controls lots of things, but there's lots of individual freedoms too. And here's what socialists and communists share these beliefs about capitalism. And capitalism is democracy. That's what we live under. Both of these believe that capitalism unfairly concentrates power and wealth among a small segment of society. An unequal society does not provide equal opportunities for everyone. So that's what the communists and socialists believe, as opposed to what believe regarding the democracy and capitalism that the United States has. And socialism, right here you can see, is where the state or the government controls means of production and distribution. So government would control all the factories. Well, in the United States, factory owners control the factories. Individuals and groups of stockholders control factories. In socialist and communist government, the government controls factories. They tell people who can work there, how much money they can make, and things like that. So that's one of the biggest differences. But also, socialism is different from communism, that in socialism, you have wealth and power is distributed evenly amongst the people. In communism, the government controls the wealth. Also in socialist countries, really what lots of socialist countries is they really provide nationalist national health care and those types of things. You can see down here at the bottom, really for most socialized countries, socialism countries, healthcare, education, and public services are fully controlled by the government. But people pay for it. Really high taxes in socialist countries. Almost 80% in some countries. Heck, in the United States, the greatest tax is about 35%. So could you imagine having to pay 80% of your money in taxes? So if you made $10,000, or maybe you made $1,000 a month, 800 of that would go to taxes, and 200 would go to your pocket. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? So that's where socialist governments are a little bit different. So let's go back to the Class Connect write-up. And that question was the two ideas socialist communists share regarding capitalism. I just showed that to you. Okay, next, monarchy and constitutional monarchy. We'll get to those shortly. Here's a discussion on socialism. We're not doing the discussions, so skip that. Okay, monarchies. So you can see the monarchies around the world. Canada, Greenland, some in Europe, Australia, some in Africa. The monarchies are run by, their old times are run by kings and queens and things like that. So it's ruled by one person or a family. So that's what a monarchy is, a system of government that is ruled by one person who is set apart from all other members. So it's usually ruled by a king. Then absolute maintains complete control over everything in the government. So you have regular monarchy and then absolute monarchy. Absolute have complete control. So the king of Prussia or the king of Egypt has complete control. So those are the ways that those things run. Now there still is, some places still have kings and queens, like in England, right? They have the Queen of England, but that has no governmental power. It's more of a figurehead. And that's what's called a constitutional monarchy. So constitutional monarchy is the monarch is ceremonial but has no power. Like in England, they have a parliament, which is just like our legislature. So that's where the different types of monarchies come in. A little bucket game, little basketball game. Go ahead and play that and see what you've learned. Now let's go back to the Class Connect write-up, see if I've forgotten anything. So monarchy, constitutional monarchy. Okay, world government. Provide and support your thoughts on the possibilities of a world government. So let's go to this. Now we're going to talk about world government. And here, Alfred Lord Tennyson, renowned writer from the 1800s, and talks a little bit about world government right here. The federation of the world, the parliament of man. So if you think about this, over the years, many people have thought about the effectiveness of a world government, meaning a government that would control everything in the world. And obviously many people have tried to do that. Hitler and others, Napoleon, back when he was fighting the wars in Europe, Napoleon wanted to take over all of Europe. So you can see that world government, or these huge governments, have tried to take things over, usually led by one person. But you can see some of the ideas here, some of the pros, meaning some of the good things for a world government. So it'd be like we could unify the earth, deal with large-scale human problems that we have in the earth, things like that. Promote common good for the world rather than for just countries and regions. But then there's some of the cons, some of the things that are gift. Impact cultures, right? We would all have the same culture if we had one government. Overshadow individual countries. So you can see some of the good things and bad things. And you can look at other arguments right down here. So I want you to explore this a little bit, maybe do a little bit of internet research, and then you answer this question right here, your thoughts on the possibilities of a world government. And I want to have you to support your thoughts. Don't just say, I think it's a good idea, and leave it at that. What are some of the reasons you would think it was? And I just showed you some of the reasons, didn't I? Okay, so world government, so you'll explore that a little bit. Now here's one of the assignment projects, the first part of it. You're going to look at global economic crisis. Of course, we've had economic crisis over the last 5 or 6 years, almost 8 years. You can read all about that, and you've seen some of it, the financial crisis in America, and some of this has happened in your own communities. So what you'll do, you're going to do A brief summary of the changes in your own hometown economy. Examples of the changes, the last 5 to 7 years. You can create a video, write an essay, do a journal, a PowerPoint, whatever you want, and you're going to include these ideas. This says an interview with local citizen. This could be a parent. That would be fine. A parent or somebody else that would be fine with me. A friend, an adult friend, not a high school friend or anything like that. Some of your businesses that have closed in your area over the last few years. Number of jobs and homes lost in your area. So you can probably do some research. You could even call your county or your city government, find some information. Other examples of economic decline in your area, like housing projects or lots of houses for sale, closed banks, things like that. And different things that your community might be trying to do. So this is going to take a little bit of research. So you need to take your time with that and do some research on it. So you're going to address all of these different items. Now if you're doing a PowerPoint, this might end up being 5 slides to a PowerPoint, right? If you're doing a word processor document, this might be like 1 or 2 paragraphs for each of these sections. But make sure you label the sections carefully so I can read them and I can understand what you're trying to address. Okay, now we're getting into NATO. NATO stands for North America Treaty Organization. So you can see that NATO came up after the end of World War II, and NATO is all in blue, and Warsaw is all in red. After World War II, we had the Allies, which were, I would call them the good people, meaning the United States, England, Spain, countries like that, France, countries that worked, or not Spain, but Portugal, countries that were on the good side that won World War II. Now the bad side were countries like Germany, Russia, those types of countries that lost World War II, Hungary, Poland, etc. And they ended up being communist countries after World War II. So then all the communist countries got together and formed what's called the Warsaw Pact, named for Warsaw, Poland, because that's where they designed it. And then all the NATO countries, North American Treaty Organization, they got together and formed their alliance. And what they tried to do, you can see what NATO is. NATO wanted to help protect all of the organizations that were part of NATO. And it has changed over time. At that time, right after World War II, it was going to make sure that all the defeated countries in Europe remained, didn't start fighting anymore. But ultimately, NATO now is a system of collective defense in which member states agree to defend in response to attack by an external party. So essentially, with NATO now, all these countries in blue, and there's more countries tied to NATO, agree to defend and help each other if anyone else wants to attack them. So that's what NATO does now. So NATO is North American Treaty Organization. I just said what they do now. I just showed it to you up here. So you can see everything that NATO does. NATO enacted an article on September 11th, so you can see that they do some things, some modern things too, and with military, financial, medical aid, etc. And then Warsaw Pact, you can read about that. So if I go back to the Class Connect write-up, I just talked about NATO, what does NATO stand for, and explain what NATO is now. I told you that. Now we have the European Union and OPEC. And we're just about finished with this, so hang in there. Now we're talking about global alliances, meaning countries that band together, that group up together for certain causes. And there are lots of them around the world. You can find all kinds of them. But some of the bigger ones, the European Union. The European Union is when 27 countries, mostly in Western Europe, they decided to group together for economic purposes, not political. They're still separate governments, but economically they wanted to get together. And I think a lot of it was because the United States is so powerful economically, and these other countries said, we can't compete with the United States, but let's join together and then maybe we can be more competitive. But you can see that they limit border policies so countries can trade easily between borders. They can people can go between borders and things like that. Allow for transfer and transportation of goods, services, and capital. Capital meaning money, essentially. So they have common trade, agriculture policies, and they even created their own money called a euro, E-U-R-O. Some of you may have heard about euro. so a common currency. But the European Union has had some major problems. You've probably seen it economically, so it may not continue the way it is. So that's the European Union. And then there's OPEC, OPEC, Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. And what OPEC does, so it's 11 countries, so it has to do with countries in the Middle East. There's Venezuela in South America, Iran, Iraq, etc. These countries team up and they control oil production around the world. And of course, if they can control oil production, then they can control the price of oil, which then can affect other countries. So you can learn about, so that's a little bit about OPEC. And you can see it says, coordinate and unify petroleum policies. Well, essentially what they want to do is they want to control prices of oil around the world. So that's what OPEC does. So if I go back to Class Connect Write-Up, we've answered what does European Union do, what does OPEC stand for, and how does it control world production, oil production, I should say. In fact, I'll go ahead and fix that right now. World oil production and pricing. So the way that they do that is they work together to maintain the prices and production that they think we need to have, because they want to make as much money as possible, right? Okay, where were we? I think we were on 16. So United Nations. Oh, crud. Okay, so NATO and the Warsaw Pact, we looked at that. OPEC and the alliances, we looked at that. So we've answered all the Class Connect write-up questions. Here's a tutorial about the United Nations. Listen to that. You learn a little bit about what the United Nations does. Of course, it's located in New York. And here's global alliances. So you can see all of this. This is the United Nations, the growth of the United Nations. So if I don't think I can pause it, but you can see how United Nations grew over the years, right? So you can drop it back down. I won't replay. But most every country belongs to the United Nations. So learn about what that does. Then finally, towards the end here, oh, crud. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, the United Nations, you can see how the United Nations, how it has grown over the years. Then there's the web quest on UNESCO, United Nations Educational Scientific Cultural Organization. You can do this, you're not going to turn it in, but just do research, find out what that organization does. Then finally, page 19, the U.S. government or the World Government Quiz. And as always, I will have the quiz posted, quiz preview posted over here on the left for you. Actually, it's right here, World Government Quiz Preview. So I have that posted for you. So, going back to the week's announcement, let's just make sure I have everything in here. The one thing I do want to add for week 5, need to put in here complete the finishing plan activity, finishing plan assignment. So you do that first, and then of course you'll go in and do the politics of the world, section A, Monday through Wednesday. You see the work that's due there, and then I'll get section B recording up tomorrow probably. So that's all I have for you. I look forward to your work coming in for week 5. And if you're a little bit behind, then obviously you need to catch up on work. But here's what we covered for week 5 so far. The first half of week 5, second half of week 5 obviously will be coming here. Section B, I'll get that set up for you. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone, and I look forward to your work coming in soon. Bye.